Am I the a-hole for giving my mother an ultimatum to choose which child she wants to live with her? I moved in with my mom after she got sick to help her. 3 months later, she told me my brother was moving in to help too. I was less than enthusiastic, as my brother is always bullied and taken advantage of me, and my mom's enablement of that sours our relationship. I was basically treated like I was a bad person for not believing my brother has magically became a different person in adulthood. My mom decided a compromise was to have him sign an agreement of his duties and our expectations for the shared living space, as well as what we all would be contributing to the household finances. I'm not trying to turn this into a pity party, but essentially, he has not lived up to a single item once. He has never taken out the trash. It's always later. I joke about it. He makes my life here miserable and filthy. He's always introducing drama and problems that beggar belief. Well, I found out my mom has needed my financial help more lately because he hasn't contributed a single dollar toward food or utilities while driving both up, and she's been trying to cover up for him. So I'm subsidizing him, treating me like a house elf, and he won't help me with her appointments or clean up after himself, let alone contribute to chores. We had a fight this morning because he left wet clothes in the washer, so I had to move them to the dryer, like always, to wash my mom's sheets, and then I had to move them out of the dryer because he wouldn't come down to get them. He was upset I left them dumped back in his laundry basket and said I should have folded them so they won't wrinkle. He never folds his clothes, and they're always wrinkled. He was demanding I iron his clothes, and my mom was trying to say she would do it for him, and I just lost it. But it was more like the straw that broke my back while they're trying to focus on it as a single overreaction. I've never hated anyone more in my life. He's the crappiest person I've ever known. So I told her it's him or me, that I'm moving out ASAP if she doesn't give him a deadline to move out. I said I'd still go to her appointments and stuff like that, but I won't live with her. My mom is hysterically upset and saying that he can't take care of her if she's sick at night, and she doesn't understand how I can be so cruel to ask her to choose between her children. But I feel like she already did a long time ago. I feel guilty to put her through this, but I also feel like this is not my fault, and I have to maintain my own sanity. I feel like crap, but I don't know what else to do. I clean the house only to wake up to it trashed every morning, and lately I've been wishing I wouldn't wake up. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This has gone on far too long. There is no impetus for your brother to change, so he won't. Your mother is wrong that he can't take care of her at night. More likely she won't admit to you nor to herself that he won't. As you rightly pointed out, she's made her choice. You've tried to help her, she squandered that opportunity, and now it's time to help yourself. Move out. Skip the ultimatum. They can and will figure this out when they have no other options. Not stay home. The thing is, she's right. He won't step up. He didn't when I had to travel for work. I had to call a friend in the middle of night because he was outside of the shed, ignoring her calls for help. When you move out, you are going to have to turn your phone off at night or she will be calling you and asking you to come and help her anyway. I know it sounds heartless, but for your own sanity, you will have to make yourself unavailable. That's the other hesitation I have. I can't afford to live that close. It'd be at least a 45-minute drive with no traffic. And you're right, she would absolutely ask me to drive that at 2 a.m. if my brother makes a single excuse. I don't know if I could be strong enough to know she's suffering. I don't know how he does it. Not stay home. She's made it clear she favors your brother while knowing he can't actually care for her. Let her lie in the bed she's made, or hire some help. No, it's more than this. She got you to move in with her to take care of her, and then invited your brother to move in with you for you to take care of him too. You said you wouldn't, and she lied to you and did it anyway. Opie, she knew deep down that she was inviting him in for you to take care of him. She knew. She thought she had you over a barrel because she needs your help. She does not have you over a barrel. When you move out, cut contact for a while. Otherwise, you'll be paying for 2 separate households when she starts to complain about not having enough money. And I think you'll find that the second the cash cow goes no contact, suddenly your brother will find a wherewithal to take your mother in and get her on a government program she should already be on. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit for my sister and leaving her without anyone to watch her kids? I'm 18 female, still in high school, pertinent to the story, paralyzed, also pertinent. My mom is 45. My sister is 28 and has 3 boys ages 10, 6, and 3. 4 years ago, I was in a car accident and came out paralyzed from the waist down. It has been hell having to learn a new way of life, but I haven't let that stop me. I'm going to be going to college out of state next year and graduating in the top 10% in my school if things continue as they are. The one major thing that is a complete bummer out of all of this, other than the obvious, is that my mom thinks that I am now a free babysitter for whenever one of my older brother or sister needs one. She never consults me on these and expects me to drop plans at the drop of a hat. This past Monday, I told my parents about a Christmas movie extravaganza sleepover my friend has been planning. It's gonna be 3 girls, and we were planning on making brownies, cookies, watching really cheesy Christmas-themed romantic movies, and just girl stuff. It wasn't Saturday, yesterday, and my parents said they had no problem with it. Yesterday arrived and I'm just about to roll out when my mom comes and says my sister is on her way with her 3 boys. Apparently she asked mom if I could babysit the other day and she said yes. Didn't even bother telling me about it. I said hell no because I already have plans. We fought and mom ended up storming off because this one time I wasn't backing down. I took the time and left, turning my phone off when I got into my friend's car. Today when I got home, I got called an immature a-hole basically. My sister was left without anyone to watch the kids during her husband's work Christmas party. But I went back on my word that I didn't make. Mom told me that I should be grateful she gives me something to look forward to, babysitting, because I have no real social life being paralyzed. I just went to my room and cried. But now I'm wondering, am I the a-hole like they say I am because I refused to babysit and then left my sister in the lurch? Not the a-hole. Your family members all suck. If your mom is that concerned about your sister having a babysitter, she can watch the kids herself. She refuses to. The 10-year-old is a major brat, and not anywhere close to a good kind. Not the a-hole. That paralyzed comment was a low blow and unacceptable. I would never babysit again. I've been paralyzed for 20 years and my social circle is small but tight. I really want to have a strong word with your mom. You didn't deserve any of that. And put your foot down and stop. Call CPS if they leave them with you. Use their words against them. I think that's what hurt the most. This is also the woman who once told me, before they let me come home, that I could make my life what I want despite everything I'd lost. Not stay home. No social life, huh? So what was the Christmas movie extravaganza sleepover you had planned and attended that they know you had plans for? Your sister needs to take responsibility for her own kids. And family are not automatically babysitters when she needs them. Even if you had volunteered your time, at least a day in advance unless it's an emergency, is something that would need to be respected. What's your plan for when you're at college? Your visits home will be monopolized by babysitter volunteered on your behalf. They don't know where I'm gonna be going at the moment. Haven't quite broken that news to them yet. Won't do that until springtime. Next story. Am I the a-hole for arranging for my wife's parents to spend Christmas celebration with us without telling her? I, male 27, have been married to my wife, female 26, for 2 years, and we're expecting a baby boy together. My wife has been in contact with her parents because of issues that occurred between them during her teenage years. She said it was because of the way they treated her late boyfriend and their 7-year-old son. She stopped seeing them after she moved out with my stepson, but she went back to introduce me, and things were fine till a little before we got married. My wife went no contact after she claimed my mother-in-law stole all her wedding jewelry and sold it. Now, I'm not sure if that was accurate or just an excuse my wife used to get me to stop asking. A few months ago, my mother-in-law as well as other family members reached out to me and we had conversations, without my wife, about how innocent my mother-in-law was. It was falsely accused by my wife to get back at her for past issues. I really felt she was sincere, especially after she said she wished my wife would give her another chance. I had an idea, which was that I invite my in-laws over to celebrate Christmas with me and my wife, and hopefully talk things out once and for all. I didn't tell my wife because I didn't want her stressing over the gathering. But days ago, I came home and she began yelling at me asking what I was thinking to invite her boys and enemies to our Christmas celebration. I tried to explain that her parents are very sincere in wanting to start new with a baby coming, but she yelled that they didn't even treat my stepson or his father well. I don't deserve to be near the kids and said I needed to cancel immediately. I suggested she calm down first and we'll talk, but she refused and packed her stuff and went to stay with a friend, repeatedly saying I disrespected her and ignored her decision when it came to her family. I spoke to her friend and said maybe my wife should let bygones be bygones, and that she might be dealing with stress and is lashing out for no reason. But her friend said I overstepped and it wasn't my business to try and fix whatever issue she has with her family. and told me to back down and cancel the invite since my wife said she won't be there. But I think she's holding on to grudges and being bitter instead of settling things down with her family. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. You're the a-hole for trying to trick your wife into doing something she didn't want to do, for choosing to believe people you've never met over your wife, and especially for doing both of those things during a holiday that's supposed to be about celebrating the family important to you. So OP1 believes his own wife to be a manipulative liar who would tell him falsehoods just to get him to stop asking. Was he badgering her? Want to take bets? About things that have nothing to do with him. 2 doesn't trust his wife's perspective at all. About the things which have happened to her or things which other people have done to her and her child. Just flat out thinks she's making it up. But he'll stay married to a person who he thinks is a manipulative liar. Out of what? Convenience? 3 feels himself to be in a sufficiently superior position to hers that he gets to make decisions about who she sees and spends her holidays with, regardless of her boundaries. Do you think he realizes that is bought and owned by people who mistreated her? That they did a nice little, a Mass Effect style indoctrination? Made him their flying monkeys, stuck their fingers in his brain and muddled it up until he's his own wife's enemy? Do you think he's ever going to realize it? People like this are dangerous because of how effectively they convince ignorant people that they are the injured party. When my mother talks to other people about me, she tells people how I'm a very angry young woman. She doesn't tell them that she laughed when I told her about the miscarriage. You're the a-hole. Congrats, you got your submission in time so you can qualify for one of the biggest of the year. Your poor wife not having a husband who is her partner and who supports her. You're the a-hole big time. I would leave you for this. When someone tells you they cut contact because of how they and people they love, including a child, were treated, the answer is not to invite the harmful people into the family home on a holiday and let them know about the baby. This is not your family and it is not your decision. At a minimum, you should have clearly communicated with your wife, but instead you've gone behind her back and taken her family side. To me, that is straight up betrayal. I don't know how you can rebuild trust here. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my in-laws out after they said they'll call the police on me for how I'm treating their son? I, female 33, have never been on good terms with my in-laws, but we tolerate each other and are civil. My husband's, male 30, is sick right now. He was involved in an accident 2 months ago. It was bad, and we almost lost him. He's still bedridden and is very restless because of his medication. He'd end up falling out of the bed several times, resulting in more injuries. I had to lift him off the floor by myself every time, which I could no longer do because of my own health and my unborn baby's health. I'm 6 months pregnant, and my in-laws don't help at all. I ended up getting him a floor mattress that he sleeps on currently, and it's so much better. However, when my in-laws, mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law 1, sister-in-law 2, and kids, brother-in-law 1 and brother-in-law 2 and wife and kids, and also my husband's grandparents and aunts, visited, which what they do often, they don't help with anything and even bring their own food to eat without me now. After calling a terrible host just because I refused to cook for them, while also expecting me to clean up after them. They saw my husband sleeping on the floor mattress, and they lost it on me saying their son should be sleeping on his bed, not on the floor, and accused me of neglecting his health and purposely making it worse even after. I explained my reasons for getting a mattress, but they demanded I return him to the original bed, or they'll call the police on me for my mistreatment of their vulnerable and helpless son. I had an argument with them about their lack of support, and told them from now on they can't and will not be allowed to visit anymore, after they basically said they'd call the police on me and had them leave immediately. They mass blasted me online and on social media calling me out for one, mistreating their son, and backed it with pictures my sister-in-law 2's daughter took of my husband sleeping on the floor mattress without asking first, and 2 banning them from visiting to see and check on their sick son, constantly expressing how concerned they are for him. That sparked more rage and involvement from distant family members, urging me to stop what I'm doing because it's wrong and outrageous. I tried to tell my side of the events, but was told they can't consider the entire family liars since they all witnessed the same thing, and that is blatant neglect. I'm now required to apologize and let my in-laws back into the house, but I just can't take it anymore with how criticizing and demanding they are. Am I the a-hole? Info. What's your husband's opinion on all this? It would be pretty easy for him to set the record straight, no? Excellent question. Can he or can he not speak for himself? In all honesty, I doubt these a-holes would care. They're so self-centered that they think Opie should be hosting them when she's 6 months pregnant and taking care of her bedridden husband. They still have the audacity to come over and criticize her without doing anything to help. Even if Opie's husband said something, they'd probably look at it as, oh, she's brainwashed him. She's such a horrible, cruel person. Please save our poor, sweet child from her monstrous clutches before he's completely under her control. Not stay home. That said, it might have been a better strategy to call their bluff and get someone to ring the police. That wouldn't have ended well with them. It sounds like you were being harassed for doing the right thing by your husband. Wish I had some advice to give you. They suck. Anyway, good luck. If they have a problem with his care, why don't they pay for an in-home nurse or some support system, rather than leave it all up to his pregnant wife? Not stay home. However, don't respond to online posts/comments. Get your husband involved. Call a lawyer in case they try to sue you. Ask a health professional to offer suggestions. Being pregnant is not a disability, but sure it does put your body under stress. And lifting heavy or running around doing errands surely is not the medical advice for a 6 months pregnant woman. Lastly, do let them visit individually to avoid them suggesting you were prohibiting them from seeing their unwell family member. I think in some countries this is an actual crime. You've got nothing to fear, and if the police come, and you have already had a lawyer consultation, they will be able to tell you what to say to ensure the truth is not bended and used against you.
Am I the a-hole for not lying to my son after he was told his mom cheated on me with his stepdad? When my ex, 30 female, was pregnant with our son, 11 male, she cheated and left me for another guy. She even tried to put him on the birth certificate, which led to DNA testing and a 3-year-long custody battle, during which she and her now husband did everything they could to try and take my son from me. Because of the cheating, the attempts to keep me out of my son's life, and the many lies told even to CPS about me, there is no civil or co-parenting relationship between us. We always sit apart at events for our son. We communicate only through a court-assigned app, and third parties handle custody exchanges. That's just the way it has to be. 2 months ago, my ex's mother, who has a rocky relationship with her, told our son that his mom cheated on me with his stepdad. After hearing this, our son brought it up to his mom and stepdad and told them he wished he never had to speak to them again. He said his stepdad is no longer his stepdad. He's completely pulled away from them. My ex mentioned this via the app, and I spoke to our son when he came home to me. We share 50-50 physical custody, 1 week with me, 1 week with her, on rotation. Anyway, I talked to my son, and he told me his mom and stepdad always act like the stepdad is better than me, and that they'd get annoyed he only called me dad and his stepdad by his first name. Finding out about the cheating made everything worse and made him really mad. He said he never liked his stepdad, which I was already somewhat aware of, and now wished he would just go away. He was upset his mom would cheat and then say all this stuff about his stepdad being a good dad to him. I told him I didn't want him to dislike or hate anyone because of me, but I wouldn't force him to like or love someone either. I asked how he'd feel about talking to someone to help process this, and he said he'd be okay with that. So I got him signed up for therapy. He hasn't started yet. My ex later quizzed our son during her week and then got mad at me for not lying to him or denying the cheating. She told me it wasn't fair to use it against her when I wasn't even the one who told him. Her mom did. She said I shouldn't ruin my relationship with my son over her actions. I got one rather long message from her through the app. Then she confronted me outside my house while our son was with her. She told me that a good father would put his son's best interests above his own hurt. I don't think she's right, but I know I may be too close to this to be objective. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. LOL, did she think you were going to take this to your grave? It would have or should come out eventually, perhaps when he was older. But that's not your fault. You sure as heck shouldn't have lied for her once the cat was out of the bag. Not the a-hole. Yes, although I never would have told him myself, but I never intended to lie if someone else did either. Not the a-hole. You are putting your son's best interest first. by getting him a therapist that will help him deal with all the crap she, not you, put him through. OP still have time later to verbally drop something like, "Not my personal problem that putting my son's interests does not benefit you nor a side piece turned husband in any form and way. Not my fault your mom told our son the truth. Direct your BS and anger at her, not at me. Not the a-hole. They both fooled around for like 12 years. They just now legit suffering now forever consequences. Due son finally finding out from maternal grandma the truth about both his parents and his mom's husband. Not the a-hole. It took 11 years, but they find out finally caught up with the F around. I agree. She would have thought of the consequences of her actions before she did them. Not the a-hole. And the cheating is secondary. She should really quit while she's ahead. Her son doesn't know that she tried to keep his dad out of his life for 3 years. She should take that as a win. Tell him she wishes she exited the relationship with his dad differently and stop bashing someone he loves. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to allow my stepdaughter to use one of my cars and telling her to get a job and buy one instead? My husband and I have a 5-year-old son together, and he has an 18-year-old female daughter, Sally, from his previous marriage. Sally is an entitled, manipulative young lady who has spent her entire life milking the child of divorce card in order to make her parents feel bad and give her everything she wants. As a result, she is now a lazy adult with poor grades in school, no prospect, no job, and no desire to get a job or do something with her life. Although my husband and her bio mom are both responsible for how she turned out, instead of coming together and working toward helping her do something, they prefer to blame each other and do everything they can to undermine the other. For example, if my husband punishes Sally by not giving her spending money, her mom will immediately throw money at her. If her mom takes her car away as a punishment, my husband will immediately give her his car to use. It's a very strange dynamic they have, and very different from what he has with me. When I asked him why he is so different in terms of parenting my son with me versus Sally with her bio mom, he said I am his wife, and a normal, sane woman he can actually communicate with. Whatever. I feel like they are both wrong, but Sally is not my daughter, and I'm happy I don't have to spend too much time with her. Now that summer break has started, Sally has the most important problem in the world. Her car broke down and she needs one to use this summer to go places, meet her friends, go to parties, etc. Her mom is not willing to give her car because she needs it for work. My husband needs his car to go to work, and neither of them is willing to buy her a new one. So Sally, the genius, found the perfect solution and asked me to give her one of my cars. To be clear, I have 2 cars, a big SUV that was given to me by my employer, and a smaller one that I use when I go into town because it's easier to park. I refused and told her she can't use either of my cars. She insisted and said I don't need 2 cars at the same time, but she needs one to get around. I told her she's free to use public transportation or get a job and buy one herself. Now Sally's going around to my husband's relatives complaining that I am trying to exploit her and send her to work. I had a good laugh about this with my husband's sister, but my mother-in-law claims I could have just refused instead of telling her to get a job. I'm a little confused about what's so bad about telling an adult to get a job. It's not like I sent a 12-year-old to work for her food or anything. Not the a-hole. Hide your keys. Also, make it clear to all that you will call in the police if a car goes missing, and you will tell them who took it. This OP because from what you've described, Sally wouldn't think twice about borrowing one of your cars. And if the SUV is a nicer vehicle, that is what she'll likely take, especially as her friends will all fit. Make it clear to both her and your husband that if either vehicle is ever missing, you will report it stolen to police and will follow through on pressing charges. If you start getting messages from her family members about how you are trying to manipulate her into getting a job, you need to confirm that as clearly as possible. You are trying to make her get a job and will continue to do so as long as you can. You have the opportunity to erase some of the damage done by her 2 enabling parents. Do not be deterred. The strange thing is that my husband agrees with me. Her mother totally hates me and is teaching her that everything I say is BS. My husband's sister agrees with me, and my mother-in-law babies her because she is her first grandchild. but I feel like no one in this situation is doing her a favor. I'm not trying to manipulate her, but her situation is so different from what I'm used to or how I parent my own child that it's insane. Like, how can it be so horrible to teach an adult responsibility? To want to give her direction in life? I don't know what they expect to do with her, honestly. They can't support her for the rest of her life, and it's sad because she is a capable, healthy adult. Even people with disabilities work and want to do something with their lives, so she has no excuse. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she chose her husband and stepkids over me, and I won't let her come back from that? I, 21 male, need to provide some background to give everyone a full idea of where I'm coming from. My dad was abusive. He was abusive to my mom mostly, but I didn't escape his anger and violence issues either, especially when it became clear that while I was well-built and tall, I was a big softy and not a fighter. He hated that. He wanted a kid who'd knock out other kids' teeth. That was never me. My mom could never leave him though. It took him dying when I was 10, after a massive heart attack, to end his lifetime of terror over us. Mom and I went to therapy separately and together after Dad died. I confessed that I wished she'd left sooner and that I hated feeling unsafe. I told her I needed her more than I needed anyone else. She told me she would never put anyone else in front of me again and that she'd make sure we had a good life. That only lasted until I was 15. Then she met her husband, Rick, who was a single dad of 3, aged 14, 11, and 9 at the time. Rick's oldest daughter, 14 at the time, had massive behavioral issues. She was in and out of psych holds, and the cops were regulars when she was around. Mom went in with her eyes wide open and decided we all needed to be a family. I spoke out against it, and Mom told me Rick needed her, and so did the kids. I told her I would not stay with her if they all moved in together. I told her I would not live with another abusive person. She told me this was different. The girl was a kid, younger than me, and just needed help. Mom called the cops on me when I left without permission, and the cops tried to bring me back. I was 16 by that point. It escalated and they let me stay. Mom tried to push kidnapping charges on my grandparents for keeping me from her and tried to get the courts involved, but I had seen some stuff from Rick's oldest. The day I left, they were at the house, and Rick's oldest daughter had tried to attack me. So, to make it all stop, I called CPS about the incident, and Mom's attempts to get me back were over. She still tried, but CPS stated I should be where I was safe. Rick's younger kids were removed for a few weeks before being placed back with Rick and my mom, who had moved in together at that point. Mom tried to maintain contact with me and tried to make me give it a chance, but I wanted no part of that. She asked me to spend some time with the younger kids so they could have an older sibling to turn to, but I refused to step up. She showed up at my grandparents a few times, but they sent her away, and I muted her number at that point. She and Rick are still together and now married. I was invited to their wedding but didn't go, and I never reached out. But she's made multiple attempts in the last 2 months, and I ignored most of them. It was only when she told me I had a family I was ignoring, and her, who loved and missed me and never wanted anything to come between us. She said she was sorry. She was so sorry and all that stuff. I told her she chose Rick and his kids over me and I won't let her come back from that. I said she made me live with abuse once, and she tried to do it again. I told her I didn't care if she wanted to help Rick and protect his younger kids. It wasn't my job to care. It was her job to protect me, and she failed for a second time. After that, Rick reached out to me and told me I didn't need to be so hard on my mom, that his oldest had problems, but it didn't mean he and the kids were undeserving of love and support. He said I had failed at being as good a person as my mom. I blocked him because he's just a random dude who has no business telling me things like that. My mom tried to get in touch again and apologized again, but I ignored it. The fact she's still apologizing is the only reason I'm here to ask this. But am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She chose your abusive father over you, and herself frankly, and then she chose an abusive step-sibling over you. She didn't put her own child first, and that has consequences. It might be different if the man she decided to date and live with didn't have a daughter with these kinds of issues, because I'm not saying your mother had to remain alone for the rest of her life. But no, she chose a partner that meant you were exposed to an abusive teenager. It doesn't make any difference that it may not be that kid's fault. You already had trauma from previous violence. It was beyond selfish of your mother to put you in that position again, even if it was from a child this time. I'm glad your grandparents had your back. Don't feel guilty for calling CPS. That is what you needed to do to stay in the safety of your grandparents' home. Thank you. CPS was something that they were really angry at me over, but it was the only way I could save myself. No matter what the consequences were for Rick's kids, I needed to be away from that mess. It's extremely telling that CPS legally removed you from the home, though you had already physically left, and placed you with your grandparents. If there had been nothing behind the call but a teen who just didn't like their new blended family, that would never have happened. CPS does not like to remove children from the home, which is why the younger two left for several weeks, and likely only returned after certain conditions had been met to ensure their safety. Hopefully, someone continued to advocate for them, as well as for the oldest, who sounds like she was not getting the help she needed either. From what I know, nothing changed when the kids were sent back to Rick. They carried on as normal and kept expecting me to come and be their human shield. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my daughter to pay for her sister's college costs? I have two daughters, 25 and 18. For my oldest daughter, I paid for around half of her total university costs. She took around $30,000 in student loans to pay for the rest. She paid off the loans very aggressively and became debt-free quickly. Due to having to support my parents, we weren't able to save much for our younger daughter and had to use a lot of the money we saved for her in an emergency a year ago. But she still doesn't qualify for financial aid. So she plans to go to community college for the first 2 years, then transfer. We're still not in a great position financially, so what I decided was to ask my oldest daughter. My oldest has a pretty stable job and earns quite a lot in a pretty low cost of living area, so I asked her if she could contribute to some of the funds considering I paid for part of her university, which helped her become debt-free fast. She was originally hesitant at first, but then agreed to cover all the costs for the 2-year community college. This would let me save up to at least pay for some of the fees after she transfers to a state university. I have around $10,000 saved up for her. I hope to bring that number to at least $15,000 to $20,000 so I can pay some of her tuition when she transfers. Now, when my husband found out about this, he got mad and told me it's embarrassing to ask a 25-year-old for money and that we should have either made the youngest take out loans or tried to contribute a bit more. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole for not discussing something like this with your spouse. Her daughter is not obligated to pay her younger sister's bills, only if she wants to. This is really embarrassing. Honestly, I was kind of wondering if they were going to approach it as a loan, like that parents would pay back. Nope. Sounds like overall just asked for the money up front. You're the a-hole. Asking your child to support your other child isn't okay. Your 25-year-old has an uphill battle ahead of her, and you're setting her back even more because of your poor planning. Oh, and your oldest became debt-free faster because she paid off her loans. She doesn't owe you anything. You caused this situation for your youngest. You get a loan and maybe take some financial lessons from your eldest. And FYI, asking her for money to support her sister because you spent all of yours on your parents is just forcing your 25-year-old daughter to support her grandparents with extra steps. Am I the a-hole for not adopting my wife's child? Original post. I, 27 male, used to have a wonderful relationship with a woman I love, 26 female. However, 5 years ago, she got drunk, had a one-night stand, and got pregnant from it. It can't be mine. I can't have kids due to a horseback riding injury when I was a teen. She didn't get the guy's name, no way to find him, so he's out of the picture. My wife decided to keep the baby, and we almost went through a divorce, but couples therapy made us decide to try again. We're still in therapy now, since I still have a hard time trusting her. So, she had her son. We talked a lot about it, and I made it clear that I'm okay taking on a step-parent role, but I wasn't willing to fully be his dad. I wouldn't adopt him, but I would help raise him and get him off to college. My wife agreed to this, became a stay-at-home mom so she could take care of him with help from her parents, and I've pretty much been the fun uncle-like guy. I play with him, buy him games, try my best not to resent him, and I am in therapy for this, and mostly just stay out of the way of my wife's parenting. He even calls me uncle instead of dad. He knows I'm not his father, and is just happy to play video games with me and chill. Well, recently, my wife has started talking about me adopting him, something I'm not willing to do. I made it clear that if anything happened, he would go live with her parents, and I'd send child support. If they couldn't take him, I wouldn't put him into foster care or anything, but I also wasn't willing to take on the responsibility of being his father when I'm not. I'm happy being an uncle to another man's kid, since that's what life threw at me. This has greatly upset her, and she's trying to find a way to force me into adopting him. She's even been manipulating the poor kid, saying he should start calling me dad instead of uncle like he has his entire life, which is upsetting and confusing the poor boy. This situation has worked for the last 5 years, and I don't know why she's trying to change something that isn't broken or force me into a role I told her years ago I wasn't willing to accept, which she was fine with until just recently. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Everyone sucks here. Everything about this is pretty terrible. Her cheating, you purposefully distancing yourself from the child, who is not yours through no fault of his own. Not to mention you being the only father figure he's ever known. Dads don't need to be blood. You all sound like a-holes. Except the little one, obviously, who I just feel so sorry for. Sort yourselves out for his sake. Exactly. If OP couldn't grow past his resentment of the kid not being his, then he never should have agreed to stay in the relationship. It's not fair to the child. Either he needs to be all in or out. You may want to check with an attorney. Regardless of whether or not he is your biological child, you have been raising and supporting him. Even if you don't adopt him, he's likely yours in the eyes of the court. That said, not the a-hole. You had an agreement. You supported her decision to keep the baby. You worked through her infidelity. She wants to have her cake and eat it too. I have checked with 2 lawyers. One actually my brother-in-law and one an outside party. I was not put on the birth certificate, and was actually told by both that the fact that he wasn't mine was grounds for a quick divorce, no matter how long it's been. If we divorced tomorrow, I would basically be walking away free. My brother-in-law was disgusted with his sister when he found out, and was even the one to suggest I get the divorce. My other lawyer is much more neutral about it all, so I trust what he says. Not the a-hole. Once she cheated on you, she lost the right to ask anything of you. You set boundaries that she agreed to, and now she pulled the child into this to try to get her way? You worked through divorce once, but something like confusing the kid by making him call you dad when you've been uncle all his life would be a deal breaker for me. You're gonna have to sit her down and let her know that if she's going back on her word, she's making your previous decision to divorce come back to light. Not the a-hole otherwise. Now for the update. After reading everything, I told my wife I was leaving and pursuing that divorce. I think I've been ready to do so for a while, but just needed a push. This has led to a complete meltdown, but I stayed firm, packed everything up, and moved in with my brother across town. I have already contacted the landlord to tell him I would pay for 2 more months' rent. After that, everything needs to be switched to her. Talking to my lawyer, it was verified that, due to the process I went through after the birth to establish I wasn't the father, I would not have to pay child support or alimony, which is something very rare and uncommon anyway where I live. He's already working on the paperwork. No idea when it'll all happen, but once it does, I'll cut full contact. My wife has tried to call and text multiple times, but I've refused to talk. Next story. Update. Am I the a-hole for wanting to break up with my girlfriend when she said she wanted to keep things casual 8 months ago and now wants to move in with her kids? Original post. I, 34 male, have been seeing this woman, 41 female, for the past 8 months or so now. She was just getting out of a messy divorce and wanted something casual and fun. I told her I wasn't looking for anything serious either and made clear I never wanted kids because I knew she had 2 daughters in high school. We've had effortless chemistry, but we've never gotten more serious over the time of our relationship. A few days ago, she brought up the idea of her and her kids moving into my place. I figured because I live on the beach, she just wanted an upgraded lifestyle, but then she brought up how the town I live in has a much better public school system than the one she's living in now. She's super sweet, and I've met her daughters and they seem very nice, but I'm like, WTF? How do we go from a casual relationship to moving in and me becoming a stepdad overnight? I don't see a path that involves me saying how I felt and her just accepting things how they are. I feel like if a woman wants to move in with you, you're beyond the casual stage. She's even joked a couple times recently about how she knows she can't give me anything I don't already have, but she can always give me a cute baby. Shaking my head. Like I said, she's really nice, but this is just way too much all at once. Now for the comments before reading the update. Time to have a serious conversation. You two are clearly not on the same page regarding the relationship. Agreed. No point dragging things out when it's clear they need to communicate and figure out where they stand. Dragging it out just builds resentment. Clear talk now saves everyone from bigger mess later. Not the a-hole. Quite frankly, I really worry about a woman who is newly divorced and is already at the stage where she wants to move her 2 minor children into the home of a man she's not in a committed long-term relationship with. You need to have a very frank and an open discussion, and quite frankly, you probably should end the relationship at this point. If I were you, I would be very mindful of your birth control going forward, because this sounds like she may try to baby trap you. Exactly. Even if she's the best girlfriend in the world, she's a crappy parent, and that should be a huge red flag. Yep. Get out before she legit baby traps you. The comments about could give you a cute baby are a warning. Treat them like the red flag they are. The situationship has run its course, and it's time to move on if you don't want something serious with her, before she gives you an 18-year commitment. Now for the update. Just want to start off by saying I appreciate all the advice and support from my last post. I told a woman that I was seeing that I couldn't continue on with her, and that the idea of her moving in with her teenage daughters after 8 months of casual dating was too much too soon. She was mad and went on and on about how I wasn't a good guy and that I used her and all that. I just hung up after a while and blocked her. On one hand, I feel like an a-hole for just dumping her out of the blue, from her perspective, but I honestly feel relieved. I think she was hoping I'd get her pregnant. After thinking about it more, I realized how could I possibly be with someone long-term who wanted to move in with me with her 2 teenage daughters, after a casual relationship for 8 months. I met her daughters in passing just once, and she wants to move them in with us? I think I dodged a bullet but still feel a bit bad. She's gorgeous and fun, but a bit dangerous too, I suspect, LOL. Seems like you dodged a bullet. No kidding. That kind of pressure after saying she wanted to keep it casual is a huge red flag. OP definitely made the right call stepping away before it got even messier. Sounds like she was looking for a man to pay her bills and play daddy, but doesn't want the commitment of a real relationship. You wanted to bang a hot chick casually. I'm not sure how you'd think that would end well, honestly. She's clearly not a good mother if she operates like this. Women don't always get called out for being homosexual the way men do, but moving 2 teen girls in with someone as unvetted as an 8-month casual relationship? They're just collateral damage in her dating wake, aren't they? Exactly. If the roles were reversed, people would be sounding every alarm. Her poor judgment put her kids in a risky situation. They deserve better than to be afterthoughts in her dating life. Well done. It was not out of the blue. You never need a reason to end a relationship. But as you keep saying, this relationship was casual, and you told her precisely why it would not work. Her judgment is trash. You should never move your children into a home with a man they do not know after 8 months. You may be a good guy, but a good mother would never take that sort of chance. Anything could happen to her girls. I'm willing to bet she's losing her place or has some financial difficulties happening and was looking for a way out. Or she is just crazy. Not the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not babysitting so my mom can go on dates with her fiancé? My parents divorced when I, 16 male, was 1, and I live with my dad and see my mom every other weekend. Why? Because she moved too far for them to share custody equally, so dad got custody since he was settled and wasn't moving for unstable reasons. Mom followed a guy to another town, a guy she wasn't even dating seriously or for long, and she moved again before I was 5 for another guy. My relationship with mom is kinda strained. Sometimes she makes an effort to actually be a mom, other than every other week, but it feels like she never cared as much about me as she did the guys she's dated. Some of those guys I stayed with when I'd go to mom's for a weekend. Others I never met, but she talked about them all the time. 4 years ago, she started seeing this guy called Clay, and now they're engaged and living together. When I spend weekends at my mom's house, I sleep in the basement on the couch because Clay's got 4 kids, and I didn't want to share a room with his sons, who are really young. It bothers my mom and Clay that I wasn't more open to being a part of the family, and mom and I fight about it at least once every 2 or 3 months when I'm there. She doesn't get why I'm not more invested. I refuse to spell it out for her. Now we're fighting about babysitting. Since she and Clay live together now, they feel like I should babysit so they can go on dates, and I refuse. Doesn't matter if I'm there or with dad, she expects any weekend they want to do something that I will drop whatever and babysit. When I'm at her house, I avoid it by staying out late exploring where she lives and going to the gaming store for hours to look around. When I'm with dad, it's easier to just say no, and she can't make dad send me over to her to babysit, and it makes him mad that she expects me to drive almost 3 hours each way to babysit for her whenever she feels like it. My mom said I need to accept that Clay and his kids are going to be my family, and I should try to get to know them. She doesn't realize that once my 18th birthday comes, she won't even be my family anymore, and I plan to go no contact. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Tell your mom that Clay is the person here responsible for childcare. He is nothing to you, and you owe him nothing. If Clay wants to go on dates, he should look into care.com. I mean, he got babysitters before, so I don't even get why they'd be so unwilling to keep doing that. I'm not here to be free child care for them, and he has his own family to send them to if he wants free or cheap. Because they don't want to pay for child care. They expect you to provide it willingly and for free. Not the a-hole. No contact. You're not obligated to keep people in your life who repeatedly show that your needs, boundaries, and feelings don't matter. You're allowed to protect yourself. But also, if there's any part of you that wants something more from your mom, closure, peace, clarity, anything, it might be worth saying something before you go no contact. Not for her, but for you, so you're not left holding resentment you never got to voice out. Hope I could help. Thanks for the advice. I don't think I have anything I really need to say to her. A few years ago, I would have had more to get off my chest. But dad got me therapy, so I didn't need to say it directly to her anymore. Are you not legally able to say where you want to live? If she pushes, tell her you'll go in front of a judge and tell them why you don't want to be there. I believe in most places, at your age, you would have a say. Last story. Am I the a-hole if I left my husband at the ER overnight? I, 29 female, and my husband, 31 male, were visiting his family in another state for a cousin's wedding. We've been married 3 years, no kids yet. My husband likes to drink, and at the reception, he definitely overdid it, taking shots with his cousins and ignoring the fact I asked him to slow down because we had to drive back to our Airbnb. Long story short, he ended up tripping over the curb outside the venue while we were waiting for our Uber and cut his forehead pretty badly. He was super drunk, belligerent, cussing at the paramedics, and refusing stitches. At the hospital, he kept yelling at nurses and trying to take off his IV, so security had to come in. They eventually sedated him so they could clean him up. At that point, it was already 2 a.m., and I was exhausted, embarrassed, and honestly mad. I asked the nurse if I could leave since they were admitting him overnight for observation, and she said yes. I called an Uber, went back to the Airbnb, showered, and went to bed. His mom and sister started blowing up my phone around 7 a.m., calling me heartless for leaving him alone, and saying I should have stayed in case something happened. He's fine now, just has a bandage on his forehead and a big hangover, but everyone's treating me like the villain. Am I the a-hole for leaving him there overnight instead of staying with him in the hospital? How did they find out? Did he call them playing the victim? Not the a-hole. Yeah, he called them the next morning all mopey. Didn't mention the yelling at nurses part either. Don't have kids with this man. I married someone like this, and they still overdo it, and it means I can't trust them overnight with the kids. My friend married someone like this, and now she's scared to divorce him because it's so hard to get full custody. And he's a danger to her kids overnight, so she chooses to stay to protect her kids. It's sad and frustrating. People can drink too much without turning into a-holes. If he can't, he should forego overindulging in the future. You're helping him figure out what he should have realized himself by now, not the a-hole. I'm hoping this is a wake-up call for him too. Thanks. Considering he called his family to complain about you leaving the hospital, I don't think it will be. Exactly. If it was a wake-up call, he would have been very embarrassed and mortified about his behavior and sincerely apologized, instead of calling mommy to play the victim. Also, another big red flag is that his family saw nothing wrong with his behavior. Not the a-hole. I think probably most women would go home at that point. I might also be planning a conversation about alcohol. I always tell him to slow down when he drinks, but he never listens. I was done babysitting that night.